Miami Marlins, brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. Only a couple of guys who might start for the Marlins this year have made this trip. It's a split squad day for them. Christian Yelich will be their opening day left fielder. Casey McGee might be their opening day third baseman. The rest backup and fill-in players. Jake Marisnick, good prospect, playing center field. There's John Lannon, his first game in a Mets uniform. He has dreamed of playing for a New York team his whole life.
John started, of course, with the Washington Nationals, was with the Philadelphia Phillies last year, but, of course, had that left knee injury. 45 and 58 in his career. The Mets signed him in the middle of January. And the Mazda defense for the Mets, Matt Dendecker playing left field. Chris Young in center, Neuenhuis in right. Lutz, Quintanilla, Saratelli, the local kid from New Jersey at second base. Great story. 31 years old, never been in the big leagues. Lucas Duda gets his time at first base, and Taylor catching.
Well, Terry Collins has opted to stay away from David Wright and Daniel Murphy for the first couple of games, and maybe even the first week of spring training games. Both have had a tendency to have some issues with pulled muscles in spring training when they played early on, and so he's trying to avoid that. And a guy who's already had a little bit of a tweak, Eric Young, also has been sitting out the first couple of games. Mike Redmond.
There's the manager, Mike Redmond, who came here today, did not stay in Jupiter. That's usually not the case. He didn't bring all his coaching staff. He left most of them in Jupiter for that split squad game against the St. Louis Cardinals.
100 losses for the Marlins last year. Finished last in the National League East. The worst offensive team in the league by far, but maybe some hope on the horizon for Miami. John Neese set back a few days with that weakness in his scapula area. Went for the MRI back in New York, but good to go.
You know what's interesting? Not playing Wright and Murphy really tells you how managers feel about spring training. It's a little long, so they can afford to keep them out for a while.
Really, particularly for position players, you can play 10 games and be perfectly ready for the regular season. Jake Marisnick leads off against John Lannon, and the first pitch up and away for ball one.
Repertoire for John. He doesn't throw hard. Throws between 86 and 90 with that fastball. Lots of good changeups and that occasional breaking ball.
He made 14 starts for the Phillies last year. He was having trouble with the quad tendon in his knee for most of the season. Had a 2-month stint on the disabled list, came back, and then finally was shut down for good in August. And wound up having surgery on that quad tendon, and he was explaining to me just how difficult it was to try and figure out how to release the ball with his leg having that kind of weakness.
Now that left knee, of course, that's the push-off leg. Very important for any pitcher.
Throws a fastball by Marisnick, 2-2.
You know, it's interesting watching John. John is the guy, when he's right, he spends all of his time around the knees. Everything has been up. Why? Well, he knows that he's at a kind of a crisis of his career, trying to win a spot, maybe overthrowing here early.
And Marisnick just got a piece of it to stay alive. Well, the Mets are pretty much set in the first 4 spots in their rotation, but there are several guys battling for the 5th job, and Lannon, one of that group, with Daisuke Matsuzaka and Henry Mejia, the other prime contenders. And there is a bit of a safety net for Lannon in that the Mets will consider him as a potential left-handed reliever if he doesn't make the rotation. And a good changeup to strike out Marisnick for the first out of the day.
You know what you love about John Lannon? When he throws it right, not only does it have that change of speed, but it'll work away from the right-handed hitter. That started on the outside corner, ended up 6 or 8 inches out. Very simple motion, knee to the hands, slight push-off, and a long stride for a sinker baller.
So 1 out and nobody on, and now one of the budding stars in the National League East, Christian Yelich, who made his big league debut last year. Yelich just 22 years old, first-round pick in 2010 out of high school in California.
Honestly, it was last year in spring training that you and I first saw this young man and said, wow, this kid has a chance. I think he's 3 for 4 in this ballpark with a couple of home runs and a double.
Well, we were talking about better times on the horizon for the Marlins, and a lot of that has to do with their young outfielders, Yelich, Marcelo Zuna, and, of course, Giancarlo Stanton. And if they can keep those guys healthy, that has the potential to be a very productive outfield. Ozuna, remember, knocked our eyes out the middle of the season last year before he hurt his thumb. The Marlins finished dead last in runs scored, last in batting average, last in on-base percentage, last in slugging percentage in the National League, and that, in large part, is why they lost 100 games last year. Their infield is a little more of a conundrum, but the outfield prospects certainly look rich in Miami. And Lannon with back-to-back strikeouts used the changeup against the left-hand batter, and he gets Yelich 2 away.
You know, the first time I ever saw this pitch used in a game was by Tom Glavine. It's that changeup down and in to left-handed hitters. Why does it work? What do left-handed hitters love? That ball down and in. So you give it the appearance it's going to be down in that strike zone, and then it disappears.
So 2 out and nobody on, and now Jeff Baker, recently signed, former Colorado Rocky, Chicago Cub. He's been all around the block. Now with his 6th big league team. Can play a little first base, second base, third base. Hit .279 last year. Charging is Quintanilla. And he throws out Baker, and a very nice inning for Lannon, making great use of his changeup to set the Marlins down 1-2-3. Mets come up in the bottom of the first. No score in Port St. Lucie. Let's go places. Chris Young will lead off for the 2nd straight day. Today he'll play center field. Lucas Duda, who DH'd yesterday, at first base today. Taylor Teagarden, trying to win a job as a backup catcher, will be back there today. And the aforementioned Anthony Serratelli gets his first look. And there's Kevin Slowey, who was a part of the Marlins rotation early last year.
Yeah, was hurt, though, for most of the second part of the year. Slowey was part of those good young pitchers that were with the Twins when Johan Santana was there. Scott Baker, Nick Blackburn, and others.
Chris Young will lead things off, went 1 for 2 in yesterday's spring opener. And he takes a call strike from Slowey. And a fastball right on the corner, 0-2. Chris Young playing center field today. When he first came up with the Diamondbacks, he was a plus center fielder.
Do you find it interesting at all that Chris Young is in center field and Matt Dendecker is in left field?
Well, I think the Mets need to figure out, if Juan Lagares is not going to be in their lineup, what they look like with Chris Young playing center field.
No.
Because in all probability, Matt Dendecker is not going to be on the roster when the year begins. I mean, I know you and I both feel as though the Mets are a better team with Young in left and Lagares in center, but it may not play out that way. Maybe Eric Young in left and Chris Young in center if that's the way they decide to go.
I think isn't it interesting that the defensive positioning or who plays depends on the leadoff hitter spot. You know, it's so important in the lineup whether Chris Young can do it, and if he can't, Eric Young comes into play.
Well, I would think that would be a more compelling argument if you had a guy who profiled better as a leadoff hitter. Yeah. But Eric Young, who was a .310 on base percentage guy last year, is not necessarily a quintessential leadoff hitter, which makes the whole argument curious.
Especially with an organization that prides itself or aspires to have a high on base percentage.
And at that spot, you would think more than any other. 2-2 to Chris Young, and he pops one up. Could be playable. Brantley, the catcher, back and makes the grab. It's played by Brantley with the wind blowing it toward the dugout. 1 away. So if you don't go with Eric Young as the leadoff hitter, who then? It's not going to be Granderson. He's obviously going to be a middle of the order guy for this team.
Lagares doesn't walk enough. Murphy never walks. Murph's on base percentage is just north of his batting average. Neuenhuis, you make the argument that, you know, strikes out a lot.
Well, I think it comes back to if Ruben Tejada can get back to where he was 2 years ago, he's probably the most apt of the group to wind up in that leadoff spot. Here's Neuenhuis, who went 1 for 2 yesterday, playing right field today. And he lines one the other way for the first base hit of the afternoon. So Kirk is aboard.
I think it's nice when the guy in the booth opens up his dumb mouth and the hitter comes up and strokes a nice single and says, "What? I don't make contact enough? Take that, base hit." Very nice.
If only it were that easy. Well, here's Andrew Brown. Andrew got 150 at bats with the Mets last year, hit 7 home runs, and he hit one in the intra-squad game here 2 days ago that almost made it to the next field over. He hit it that far. It was an absolute bomb. But we saw that last year. He's got that kind of power. There's Bartolo Colon. Signed to a 2-year deal by the Mets after a stellar year in Oakland last year.
He's going to be fun to watch. If you haven't seen him throw a lot, probably the most unique pitcher in baseball. Throws 80% fastballs. He'll change speeds on all of them. He'll cruise at around 88 to 90 and all of a sudden throw one 95 at advanced age.
We'll see what he did last year at age 40, second in the American League in ERA.
Slowey is a really good athlete. Outstanding move to first. Had Neuenhuis leaning right there.
Slowey is a long shot to make the rotation for the Marlins this year. Their young pitching is outstanding. And that's close, but Neuenhuis just gets back. You start with last year's National League Rookie of the Year, Jose Fernandez, who had as good a rookie season as anybody since Dwight Gooden.
Again, leading again, but Neuenhuis, proper technique, back of the bag, gives him that extra split second.
1 out and 1 on. And Brown's late, 1-2. But even after Fernandez, you've got Jacob Turner and Henderson Alvarez and Nate Eovaldi, all good, young, hard throwers. And the Marlins have the makings of a pretty good young pitching staff.
And who threw a good game against the Mets last year? Tom Kohler, right?
Kohler might be the 5th starter.
New Rochelle, young man.
Slowey gets Brown with the high fastball for the second out.
These are the things that happen to hitters in spring training, is that you just don't pick it up. It's hard to zone it early as the pitchers, I believe, are advanced. Here's the Mazda Marlins defense. Yelich, Johnson, that's Reed Johnson in center field, and Marisnick in right. McGee, Lucas, Dietrich, who we saw a little bit last year, Jeff Baker at first, and Rob Brantley behind the plate.
Reed Johnson seems to move to a different team every year, but never to the Mets.
We could have used him like 8 years ago.
Here's Lucas Duda, who swung the bat well yesterday. Swings at the first pitch and flies it out to left where Yelich waits. And that retires the side. A hit and 1 left in the bottom of the first. On to the second we go in St. Lucie. No score. That's uniform. Couple of strikeouts and a ground ball. Casey McGee will lead off for Miami. McGee, the former Brewer, Pirate, and briefly Yankee, played in Japan last year. In fact, he played for the Rakuten Golden Eagles, who won the Japan Series. He was a teammate of Masahiro Tanaka.
And he was asked about Tanaka over and over, of course, after Tanaka signed. And he said he's a beast in a complimentary way.
Neuenhuis puts it away. McGee had a good year there. He hit .292, 28 home runs, earned his way back into the major leagues, and he thinks, I think the Marlins think, a starting third base job.
Interesting. Talking about Tanaka, you mentioned that he's pitching today. He follows CC Sabathia and Hiroki Kuroda. Ichiro Suzuki's playing right field, so there'll be some reporters from Japan there at that ball game.
I believe NHK is bringing the game to Japan live at 3 a.m.
Oh,
that's how big it is.
Wow.
Tanaka's first spring training game.
Now, if you're into that, okay, and you're in Japan, do you stay up or do you wake up?
You set the DVR.
You set the,
isn't that what a civilized person would do?
Don't you want to see it live?
What, 7 a.m.? You figure you've been outflanked on the Twitterverse in reacting? Is that the
yes.
danger?
Yes.
Derek Dietrich, the batter, and he went around on the half swing, playing with just 3 umpires today. How does that work exactly? How can we get 4 umpires for some spring training games and 3 for others?
Bad GPS by one of them.
0-2 to Dietrich. Dietrich had some significant time as the starting second baseman for Miami last year, but played his way back to the minor leagues and then was part of a large controversy when Tino Martinez was accused of grabbing Dietrich after a batting practice session. That's pulled over the bag. A fair ball going down the line and off the bullpen bench. Dietrich to second. He might try for 3, but he pulls in as Neuenhuis gets the ball. And there's the first hit for Miami, a 1-out double for Dietrich.
Well, other than that mishap with Martinez, I think you and I were both impressed with Dietrich and his bat. And here just pulls it down the line. Dude, way off that line, trying to cover that hole. Cost the Mets a double. Didn't cost the Mets a double. No way he makes that play.
The story was that Dietrich and some of the other players were in a BP session in the cage with Tino, and you know, when BP's over, you pick up the balls. And apparently Dietrich and these other players refused to pick up the baseballs, and Tino lost his mind, and you can understand why.
Well, just think of it this way. Tino Martinez probably spent some time in the cage with Derek Jeter, who probably picked up the baseballs. I think the bigger question is, and it doesn't happen in every organization, but there are some players that treat the coaches a lot less than they would in times past.
Reed Johnson, the batter, with a runner at second and 1 out. Johnson last year played in Atlanta, hit .244, and he lines that one right at Dendecker, who makes the lunging grab for the second out. That ball fooled Dendecker a little bit. He had to go down for it.
You know what's interesting? He kind of hit him in the heel of the glove. And whenever that ball is hit very sharply by a right-handed hitter, that ball will kind of work its way, like hook to the foul line. Nice play by Dendecker.
You know, it's axiomatic that the best outfielders play center field, but it's harder to play the corner, especially if you're used to playing center field.
It's just the angle of the ball off the bat doesn't give you the reaction time you have in center field.
As Rob Brantley takes inside.
When you're playing center field, everything is just right in front of you, and you can almost anticipate ball outside where the ball is going to be hit. Can't do that in right and left.
Brantley pulls one foul. Brantley, you'll remember, was acquired 2 years ago when the Marlins were cleaning house, and they made that trade with Detroit, sending Anibal Sanchez and Omar Infante there. And when he first came over, it looked like he was going to be a big part of the Marlins' future, but after a very good hitting start, he cooled down, wound up last year hitting just .211, and now he may be out of a job, with Jared Saltalamacchia set to be the Marlins' starting catcher coming over from Boston, and Jeff Mathis is likely backup.
Jeff Mathis really moved up in the pecking order last season, didn't he? Very capable receiver, strong defensively, a lot like Mike Redmond was as a player.
Yeah, when you have a manager who's a former catcher, that position tends to be one that gets a lot of attention. And certainly the Marlins bettered themselves greatly by bringing in a player like Saltalamacchia.
Switch hitter, knows how to run a staff. He's going to be a big plus for them.
And has a ring on his finger.
Yes, he does.
And that counts for a lot when you've got a substantially young team. 2-2, and Lannon strikes him out with a slider. Nicely done by Lannon. 2 very good-looking innings. He strikes out 3. Well, Lannon making his first bid for a 5th starter.
Just pounded, if not with snow and cold, the news of snow and cold.
Is that what they call seasonal affective disorder?
That's what absolutely had it.
Zach Lutz will lead off for the Mets as we go to the bottom of the second. Lutz playing third base today, had 1 at bat in the game yesterday and struck out. Zach continues to put up good minor league numbers. Last year, 111 games at Las Vegas, hit .293, 13 homers, a .377 on base. Had a handful of at-bats last year, as he did the year before.
Did he just hurt himself on that swing? Hopefully not. Watch the follow-through. Ball away. It looked like he hopped. To see that reaction? That's a different kind of reaction to a swing. We saw the awful event transpire yesterday with Wilfredo Tovar, who we don't know, he hurt his leg, but in the first spring training game.
Fortunately, it seems like it's a very mild hamstring. And it only should keep him out a couple of days. As Slowey dents the outside corner. He carved up Lutz in that at bat. And that's his second strikeout. So now 1 out and nobody on. And here is Taylor Teagarden. Teagarden, a very highly touted prospect when he came out of the University of Texas, but never has been able to hit much at the major league level. He's been besieged by injuries his entire career. Tommy John surgery, wrist, back, and then last year he took a foul ball off his thumb and missed a couple of months while playing for the Orioles. Lifetime .206 major league hitter.
Got one of those names you just feel like he should be a star, right?
The Mets actually have 2 University of Texas products in the lineup today, both of whom were considered huge prospects. Teagarden was a number 3 pick as you look at Kyle Farnsworth warming up in the Mets bullpen. Teagarden, a 3rd-round pick in 2005 after winning the College World Series with Texas. And, of course, Omar Quintanilla, who was a 1st-round pick out of Texas in 2003.
The Mets had Calvin Schiraldi, who was a number 1 pick from Texas. Didn't they draft Clemens also before?
At high school.
Yeah, at a high school. I remember when we played in '86 in the World Series against the Red Sox, their shortstop, Spike Cohen, was a Texas grad.
Somehow I feel like the Longhorns are more known for their pitching.
Yeah. Houston Street.
1-2 on the outside corner. Slowey, just as he did with Lutz, picking off the outside edge to get Teagarden. 2 out.
Slowey and Lowy on the outside corner. I mean, what's great about Kevin Slowey is that at this point in his career, he'll tantalize you with some breaking balls, and then once he gets ahead in the count, he'll surprise you with that good spotted fastball.
So 2 out and nobody on. Now Matt Dendecker. Dendecker 0 for 1 in the game yesterday. Slowey very sharp with his fastball in his first spring start. When you are the 8th guy in a 5-man rotation, much like John Lannon, Slowey trying to come out firing in game 1. And it's worked for both of them so far.
See that throw back to the pitcher? Did the catcher hit the umpire on his throw back? Because he ended up throwing a ground ball to the shortstop.
Archimedes Caminero, one of the great names in baseball, up in the bullpen, ready to be the next Marlins pitcher. 1-1 to Dendecker, and he lofts one foul. Got the brief glimpse of the Tiki Bar. We're not allowed to show it for very long.
Really?
Well, now we can. Just not a close-up. I'm informed now that our Tiki Bar limits have been lifted.
Oh, very good.
Swing and a miss. And Slowey strikes out the side of the 2nd inning. He gets Dendecker. 4 strikeouts for Slowey in his 2 innings, and no score here in Port St. Lucie. Farnsworth will make his first appearance of the spring for the Mets.
Well, you were talking about being all over the planet. Carl Farnsworth has played just about everywhere. You see his numbers in 48 games. Not the strikeout pitcher he once was.
Mets would be his 8th major league team. Played last year for Tampa Bay and for Pittsburgh, and did some very good work for the Pirates after they got him down the stretch last year. Ed Lucas will lead off for the Marlins, and meanwhile we are joined from the Mets dugout by Josh Satin. Josh, how you doing?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Josh, what was your major focus this offseason?
Taking everything I learned from last year and trying to really bring it to my game. Just hitting approach, hitting swing, mechanics that I've learned from guys, on the team, and really working on that. Plus, working on my physical fitness and my body.
You have always talked about the fact that your swing in the minor leagues was a little complicated and making the transition to maybe being a part-time player at the major league level, that you might have to simplify it. Have you been able to do that since you've been in the big leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I think in 2012 in the minor leagues was a huge year for me in that aspect. I realized that what I was doing wasn't going to work at that level. It might have worked at, in the minor leagues, but it wasn't going to work in the big leagues. So, I changed a few things, just really simplifying, like you said. And, it's still a work in progress, but day after day, it always gets better.
Josh, I was wondering, I'm always interested, who do you work with in the winter to try to refine your skills?
Different guys in the area, but this winter I worked a lot with Marlon Byrd and Justin Turner. They live really close to where I live in California, and we spent a lot of time together. Just going over things. We have, all have different philosophies slightly, but we all, try to get to the same spot when we're ready to hit. So, we just bounce ideas off each other, which makes it a lot easier to get your work in when you're bouncing ideas off other guys.
You are kind of the guy in the shadows when all the conversation takes place about the first base job, and they talk about Davis and talk about Duda, and there you are, particularly with what you were able to accomplish against lefties last year. What's your approach to that whole situation, and how are you handling competing for a job on this team?
For me, I just want to do whatever I can to be part of this team. I think this team has a really bright future, starting with this season. And in my mind, if those guys are playing well, and then I'm not getting as much time, well, that means we're winning. And the best way to stay on a club and really make a difference is when the team is winning. So, I'm just going to do whatever I can to help us out. And wherever they need me, that's really what I'm going to do.
Josh, I remember I was talking to Nick Johnson, who played with the Yankees and the Nationals as a first baseman, and he always had such a great eye, which I think you do also. And I asked him, how did you develop that? He said, I've had it since I was a kid, always had it. Have you always had that great batting eye, know where the strike zone is? Yeah,
I've always been a high walk guy, throughout my career, starting in high school even. But I've really been able to develop it more into pro ball, especially with Sandy and them coming in and really preaching their ideas of hitting. It's helped me really hone in on what I want to do. And it's really just zoning into a pitch in a spot, and if it's there early in the count, you go, and if it's not, then you let it go. And that sounds simple, but that's really what I think when I'm in the box. It's obviously easier said than done, but it just helped me get into at bats and get better pitches to hit.
Josh, when you're fighting for a job, you have a lot of input, your family members, everyone that wants to ask you, how'd you do today? Do you try to shut all that out and just get, kind of myopic about, what, I'm just going to go to the ballpark and be ready to go every single day and kind of leave it there and come back and get it again the next day? Yeah,
I mean, that's what I try to do. It's difficult, though, because, you have so many people that want the best for you, and your family especially. And so they're kind of living through you a little bit, and they want to be, in the battle with you and know what's going on. So it's tough, when you leave the park, sometimes you want to just let the day go. So when people are coming back at you with, questions about how to go, how do you feel, what do you think, I try to answer it politely just because I know they care, but I really just want to kind of block it out and just go about my business.
And that ball stays fair. A home run for Austin Barnes, a young catcher serving as the DH today for the Marlins, and that is the first run of the game as Barnes homers off Kyle Farnsworth. 1-0 Miami. Josh, talking about people whispering, when you have a player in your position, one of the things, especially now that you've been pegged as a corner guy, one of the things that a lot of players in your position will hear is he's got to hit for more power. Do you listen to that? Do you hear that? Are you changing anything in any way to try and generate more power, or are you just going to be who you're going to be?
I definitely hear it. I got to this point for a reason. They trusted me to play last year for a reason, and I don't, obviously would I like to hit for more power? Of course, but it's not really something that I can try to do because I think that would take away from what I do best. I think that at some point, the older I get, the more mature I get, and the more, I get a handle of what's going on at the major league level. I think the more it'll be, I'll be able to, translate some of those line drives and whatnot into greater power. But I've always been more of a doubles guy, and that's really my approach, and I try not to do too much, but hopefully, at some point, I'll be able to translate that into some more homers.
Nice play by Anthony Saratelli, but due to off the bag, it's an infield hit for Marisnik.
If I remember right, Josh, a Sawadee Kop means how are you doing in Thai. How was your experience in Thailand?
My experience was amazing. It was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we got to do so many different things, whether touring the crazy city of Bangkok or going into the jungle and riding elephants and ziplining and seeing monkeys and whatnot, and also just really relaxing for some of it on the beach. So it was an awesome experience, and I feel like I got to soak in almost everything that Thailand has to offer.
One more question before we let you go, Josh. Have you added an outfielder's glove to your collection?
I definitely have one, and I don't know how much use I'm going to get out of it, but I'll be ready for it if need be. We have so many athletic and good outfielders now that the need for it is probably not as extreme as it once was, but I'll be ready if called upon.
Josh, thanks, and good luck for a great season.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Josh Satin joining us from the Mets dugout. Meanwhile, Jake Marisnik steals second, and Taylor Teagard double clutching that throw. Made a good throw, but just a shade too late. 2-0 to Christian Yelich as Farnsworth fires a strike.
A lot more breaking balls from Farnsworth. There was a time where you could almost predict he would throw 95% fastballs when he had that 95-mile-an-hour rider.
A little different when you're 38 years old. 37 now, will be 38 in April.
Josh hit on an interesting point. It really does, Gary, take a village to kind of get you to the major leagues. People think your parents, but sometimes it's your brothers and sisters who have to kind of put their hopes kind of on hold while you're doing your thing. Coaches, sleepovers at parents playing on these travel teams with mothers that donate their time. It's amazing how many people are pulling for you at a certain time.
But the question you asked then is an interesting one. You owe so many people so much by the time you get to the big leagues that they all feel that they have an investment in you, and they want to know how you're doing, and they want to provide their input. But as a Major League Baseball player, you kind of have to find a way to tune that all out.
You got to say, hey, I love you, but I got this one, and that's how it goes. There's Matt Harvey with the glasses. I think he was in Thailand also. Some real globetrotters the Mets had this year.
Yelich draws a walk. He could have fielded a team there.
That's right.
Maybe a little elephant baseball, kind of like donkey basketball.
You ever been to Bangkok?
I have not.
Oh, it's a whole different experience moving around there.
Well, they say one night in Bangkok.
I spent 4 nights, so.
What's the line? One night in Bangkok makes a hard man humble?
Yeah.
Here's Jeff Baker, who grounded out to short his first time up. 2 on and 1 out, a run home for the Marlins on the Austin Barnes home run. The runners go. Teagard's throw goes to second, and they get the out there as Saratelli puts down the tag on Yelich. So Teagard going after the back runner and gets the second out.
That play is no good unless they both get the stolen base. It's not a great throw by Teagard up, but a nice supply of the tag by Saratelli. Yelich did not get there in time. For Yelich, it's a hard call because you have to wait till Marisnik leaves, and then you decide whether you want to go or not.
Well, there has to be a time when that's a call, when that's a sign from the third base coach. It's a double steal.
It is, but Marisnik has so much speed. I bet you he's got the green light. And what you try to do if you're a base runner is give a little sign to your running mate on the first base and let him know that you're thinking about it.
1-2 to Baker, who grounded to short his first time.
And not to take away, what a nice decision by Taylor Teagarden.
Well, he's shown a very nice throwing motion. He's always had a reputation of being a terrific defensive catcher. The shortstop where Quintanilla makes the play, and that retires the side, so helped out by Teagarden's throw. Farnsworth holds the Marlins to just one.
One kind of a different way. You can see him say stay in front of the plate. If the ball's up the line, you got to go get it. And this is Archimedes, not the Greek mathematician, Caminero, coming into the game for the Miami Marlins.
26-year-old right-hander who got in 13 games for Miami last year. Anthony Serratelli getting his first at bat. Serratelli, one of those great spring training stories. The Marlins had a guy like that last year, Ed Lucas, who became a 31-year-old rookie. In fact, he's playing shortstop for Miami today. And here's Serratelli, who grew up in New Jersey, went to Old Bridge High School, on to Seton Hall, where he was a walk-on, undrafted out of college, went to play in independent ball for a year before the Royals signed him. And he has spent the last 8 years tooling in the Kansas City farm system, playing every conceivable position. And the Mets see him as a potential utility man, including a backup shortstop.
Backup shortstop. He also played a lot of outfield last year. And boy, Seton Hall has had Scott Rice up in the bullpen now. But Seton Hall's had a lot of great baseball players, haven't they?
Craig Biggio, Mo Vaughn, Charlie Palaio.
Yep.
Sure, I'm missing a few.
Puff. Rick Cerrone went there, didn't he?
But Serratelli, one of the things that attracted him to the Mets is the fact that he has always been a high on-base percentage guy. Checks his swing, and he went around, and he's down on strikes. So Caminero comes in and fans the first man to face him.
Tough call here. Slider down and in. I would have given him the check there, but might be biased.
So 1 out and nobody out. By the way, you look at Serratelli. Grew up in New Jersey. See the number he's wearing? What team do you think he rooted for as a kid?
Yeah, exactly. That was an easy one.
Shortstop, number 2. 1 out and nobody on. Here's Quintanilla, and he takes a fastball inside, ball once. By the way, speaking of numbers and speaking of tributes, tonight the Philadelphia 76ers are retiring Allen Iverson's number 3. In Philly camp today, Marlon Byrd, the former Met, came out for batting practice wearing an Allen Iverson number 3 baseball jersey. Now, think about the dysfunction in that statement. He went out for practice, paying tribute to Iverson.
Practice?
Practice. I'm not talking about a game. We're talking about practice.
That is one of the great 5 minutes of video of all time.
If you're not familiar, you should pull it up on YouTube. Allen Iverson practice.
That is great.
To the Quintanilla. I have to say, he only played 2 years in college, but Allen Iverson, for those 2 years, was the best college basketball player I ever got a chance to see regularly in person.
Really? Was it? You know what's interesting for me, and I'm a big Iverson fan, is that he was so quick and amazing shot, but how strong he was for a wiry kind of guy.
A little guy,
yeah.
And he would take punishment, and he'd always get up. He played great defense. He could pass the ball. He was just phenomenal.
It's those certain players that, in the NBA, I always think of Charles Barkley too, who's 6'4", maybe 6'4.5", who I think had 25 boards a game one year or whatever. Those guys that belie their size and are just the kings of the hill.
How about Wes Unseld?
Wes Unseld.
Might have been 6'5", playing center against the likes of Chamberlain and Willis Reed and people like that. Omar Quintanilla.
I remember as a kid, we always were fascinated because the Boston Celtics center was Dave Cowens, who was 6'8" or 6'9", whatever.
Mm-hmm. But he was slippery.
Yeah.
Quintanilla out on strikes. That is 5 straight Mets who've been struck out. Kevin Lowy struck out the last 3 to face him, and Archimedes Caminero has gotten the first 2.
They're both on that same pitch, that real good hard slider down and into the lefties.
So 1 out and nobody on. Now Chris Young with 2 out and nobody on. Young fouled out to the catcher his first time up. We talked to Eric Young yesterday. He made the point that it was his first spring in Florida because he was with the Rockies all these years. And for Chris Young, it's also his first spring in Florida. And for a lot of the guys who've trained in Arizona and they come here, the first thing they say is, oh, it's so humid, because they're used to the dry air. And so I said, does the humidity get to you? He reminded me, he's from Houston.
Yeah.
It's the most humid place on earth.
That's right.
So he's fine with the humidity.
You know, not only the humidity, but the bus trips in Florida are different than Arizona.
Well, we haven't gotten to those yet.
Yeah. I honestly did not like Arizona for spring training, Gary, but it was a different time. When I went to Arizona in 1992 for my first spring training with the A's in Scottsdale, Phoenix, they didn't have the highways that they have now. So you literally spent entire days in your car, stuck in traffic.
Also in those days, they had teams in Tucson and in Yuma.
Right.
Now you've got, I think, 15 teams in Arizona, all grouped in the Phoenix metropolitan area.
And the furthest is like, what, Surprise? I think the Rangers are in Surprise, Arizona.
Maybe a 40-minute drive at the most.
Yep.
So things have changed. It used to be the east coast of Florida was greatly populated with teams in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Vero Beach.
Sometimes you fear for the East Coast spring training baseball, don't you?
Line the other way. That's a base hit for Chris Young. Over quickly to play it is Johnson. And holds Young to a single.
Well, in 2 days, we've seen Chris Young get a couple 2-strike hits. One up the middle, and this one to right field. Certainly not what you've seen in the past when he was more of a trying to jump and hit the ball to the ballpark. Looks like he's trying to aspire to be more of a complete hitter.
And again, you go back to his sessions in the offseason with Rod Carew, and you wonder what kind of impact that's had on Young and whether he can carry that forward. Just trying to make himself a more complete hitter. Sometimes you have to be humble in this game. You know, Chris Young hit 200 last year for Oakland. There's Newman Heiss, who had a base hit the other way his first time up. And that one hits the dirt, but Young holds it first.
Well, tough play there for the catcher. That breaking ball for Brantley. As soon as it hits the dirt, when it has that spin on it, it'll tend to work back to your left shoulder. And just caught a piece of him.
I wonder whether Caminero's parents had a little math teacher in them.
Yeah.
Archimedes Euclides Caminero.
Wow. They just consider he's going to be a Greek god at some point, maybe.
Perhaps. Or reinvent geometry.
That's right.
One. And Newman Heiss skies one. And the shortstop Lucas takes charge. Side retired. A base hit and one left. We played 3 not too far from the beach here in Port St. Lucie. It's 1-0 Miami. Here, left-hander Scott Rice makes his first appearance of this spring.
Well, we were talking about Anthony Saratelli trying to make his mark in his first year. Well, Scott waited all of those 14 seasons, finally made the big leagues and appeared in 73 games. Very important part of that bullpen last season.
And that number at the bottom of the middle, 174 left-handers against him. Of course, he had his season cut short because of a hernia. Otherwise, he might have been in 90 games by the time it was all over. Casey McGee will lead off for the Marlins, and we are joined from the Mets dugout by today's starting pitcher, John Ladden. John, the New York kid, finally gets to pitch in a New York uniform. How did it feel?
It was pretty cool, you know. Just excited to get back on that mound, though.
John, you have so much experience Do you get nervous coming over to a new team and appearing for the first time?
You know, not really. These guys accepted me with open arms, and I feel pretty comfortable in the clubhouse. But I was pretty nervous just getting back on the mound, just because there was such a layoff. You know, my last game was last August, so I was just excited to get back out there.
Buda makes the grab to retire. McGee one away. Talk about your rehab, coming back from that tendon injury in your knee. What was it like, and when did you finally feel that you were solid on that leg?
You know, I got cleared by the doctor January 6th. I felt pretty good before that, but once I got cleared and got the okay to do everything, that's when I started really pushing it, getting off a mound, running, and really trying to strengthen that quad for spring training.
How did that affect you the most last year when you were trying to pitch through it?
You know, I just didn't have anything on my back leg. From the moment I lifted my leg to the moment I pushed off, you know, it was, there was really nothing there. So not only did I not have anything on the ball, I just didn't know where it was going.
John, who taught you your changeup? It's one of your most outstanding pitches, and he's had a couple of real great ones today.
You know, a guy named Sharon Martis. He was with the Nationals. He had a really, really good changeup. And I throw a four-seam changeup, which is different because my main pitch is a two-seam, but it seems to have a pretty good downward action to get the guys swinging on top of it.
John, you're in a position this spring where you've got to battle for a job. How does that change your approach at the beginning of the spring? I mean, in the past, when you knew you were going to be in a rotation, would you take your time getting your pitches in order and work your way toward the season, or were you always a guy who would fight for it right from the first outing?
You know, this spring's definitely different, but any way you look at it, it's definitely a time of progress. You know, you gotta, at the same time of competing, you gotta realize that it's time for you to work on your pitches and stuff. So I'm doing my best to do both, and I thought today was a first good step.
John, as everyone moves along in their career, and you're a veteran, you try to add little tricks here and there. Is there anything you've been working on, maybe to introduce this season?
You know, just utilizing my two-seam a little more on both sides of the plate, into righties, away to lefties. It's something that I really haven't done much in my career, but it's something that really I would benefit from it. And you know, just throwing my lefty on lefty changeup. That's what I've been doing the last couple of years, and it's really been pretty good for me.
Well, I'm very impressed by that lefty on lefty changeup. Where do you kind of try to locate that pitch? Because the left-handers love that ball down and in. Where is your spot that you try to pick to throw that pitch?
I just make sure it starts over the middle of the plate or inner half, and just make sure it dies off the plate. I really don't try to throw that pitch so it ends up on the plate, because you're right, it's down and in is pretty much lefty's bread and butter. So I make sure that pitch starts in the zone but ends up where they can't really do much damage. If anything, they're going to pull a ball down the line like that guy did for the double.
John, I know your focus is on trying to win a job in the starting rotation, but there's been some conversation about the possibility of you working out of the bullpen, and I know you've really never done that before. What are your thoughts about that?
You know, anything to help this team. I knew that coming in. You got a lot of young, good starting pitching here, so I'm in the situation where I think I can pitch in the big leagues, and I'll do whatever I can to do that.
Have you allowed yourself to think about what it would be to pitch at Citi Field as a hometown player?
Not yet. Just putting on that striped uniform was pretty cool, so one step at a time, but the possibility there, it's pretty exciting.
John, thanks so much, and good luck to you.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, John Ladden, who certainly had a terrific debut today. 2 scoreless innings, 1 hit, no walks, 3 strikeouts.
It's always good to have a New York accent on the team.
Reed Johnson pops one up, and Saratelli puts it away in an impressive 1-2-3 inning for Scott Rice. On we go to the bottom of the 4th on a warm day in St. Lucie. 1-0 Marlins. Earlier about the dearth of baseball on the east coast of Florida, and there you can see it graphically. Just 4 teams now on the east coast, with the Nationals up in Vieira, the Mets here in Port St. Lucie, and the Cardinals and Marlins in Jupiter. Sharing
a complex there in Jupiter. I'm going to do something I've never done since we've done the broadcast. My family's going to be away a better part of this month. I'm going to drive over and see every ballpark on the West Coast. I've never done that yet.
You know, it used to be when the Mets first moved here to Port St. Lucie in 1988. Of course, they had been on the west coast of Florida in St. Petersburg for their first 20-odd years, as it's drilled down the left field line by Andrew Brown, but that'll go foul.
He hit it on the roof of the batting cage. That was impressive.
He's got awesome power.
Yeah.
He really does. Just needs to make a little more contact, and could be a very productive piece, especially as a right-handed bat off the bench. 7 home runs last year in just 150 at bats. But when the Mets first moved here, they every spring would take a trip to the west coast of Florida for 2 or 3 days, stay overnight in the hotel over there.
I remember that was the first time I was really introduced to Burns Steakhouse in Tampa.
Marisnik tracking it in center field, and Brown retired one away. The other piece about the lack of competition on this side of the state is that 2 of the 3 teams who are here on the East Coast with the Mets are their divisional rivals.
Well, it was the same way when I played. When we first came here, Atlanta and Montreal were in West Palm Beach. And I remember saying to Mel at one point, I said, you know, Mel, I'm facing these guys 5 or 6 times during the season. If we can have me pitch in the 10 o'clock game over here, I have no problem with that. Because you feel like you're running out of bullets against teams when you face them that often.
Well, there's been a lot of conversation recently about the possibility of a new complex in West Palm Beach, which might house a couple of teams, about the possibility of the Mets sharing this complex with another team.
It was Houston someone mentioned, right?
But to this point, none of that has happened. And I think also there's been conversation about the Nationals trying to get out of Vieira. Now, I don't know where they'd go, but if they left the East Coast, all of a sudden you've got a big problem.
Yeah, you do.
Of course, you had the Dodgers several years ago leave Vero Beach to go to Arizona, which, even though they've been here since 1948, made more sense being closer to home.
As Duda drives one to deep right field. Forget that. Way up on the berm. A tremendous home run off the bat of Lucas Duda to tie the game at 1. Well, yesterday it was Ike Davis hitting a long home run. And now Duda, who swung the bat well yesterday, cranks his first of the spring.
Game on. In these moments, when you see a swing from Lucas like that, that you say to yourself, boy, if he ever figures it out.
This was a bomb. He almost made it to the back of the berm. And the wind is blowing in today from right field, by the way. Yesterday it was blowing out. That's a good breaking ball for a strike to Lutz.
I will tell you, as a pitcher, this almost hurts your feelings when someone hits it this far. You don't want to look at it. It'll give you nightmares at night. Tremendous shot by Duda.
430 against the wind. It's not bad. He's a very big, strong man. And he's in better shape now than he was before after his time spent in that Michigan program.
You know, it's interesting. Wilmer Flores we saw yesterday, so lean and trim. Lucas, to me, looks like he's in great shape, but just bigger through his chest and his shoulders.
Yeah, I never thought he was lacking for strength.
No, he's a big man. I mean,
with Lucas, you always get the impression that it's about his belief in self.
I think he's had enough time now. I think he felt like he was embarrassed when he was sent down. I think he has a chance to start to come into his own.
Strike 3 called, and Lutz is caught looking for the second time. 7 strikeouts in the first 4 innings for Marlin pitchers. Well, there was a lot of talk at the beginning of spring training about Lucas because, after all, we all know what the deal is. He's a guy who looks to have the high on-base percentage. He's a patient hitter. And he was asked whether he'd be more aggressive in RBI situations this year, and he said, no. He said, I'm a patient hitter. That's who I am. But to me, it's more about wanting to be the guy to produce in the big spot.
I totally agree with you. You know, it was interesting. I was reading something from Paul Goldschmidt, who had just a tremendous season in Arizona last year. And he was talking about RBI situations. Dayton up for the Miami Marlins, and he said that in the past he put too much pressure. He felt anxiety with guys on base because he was that big first baseman. He had to get the runners in. That what he's done, because he never situationals hits, he's not going to hit the ball on the ground or move a guy to third base from second. But what he did is he just forgot about people on base and just tried to take the same approach every time, and it turned into a monster year.
Not a bad approach here with the bases empty by Lucas Duda. A monstrous home run to tie the game at 1 after 4. But here either.
Don't let me go.
27-year-old John Church will be the fourth Met pitcher of the day.
See his numbers from last year. 3 saves, less hits than innings pitched, more strikeouts than innings pitched. All good numbers.
Rob Brantley leads off the Marlins. Struck out his first time up. So John Lannon went 2 scoreless innings, struck out 3. Kyle Farnsworth got touched up for a run in his inning on a home run by Austin Barnes. And Scott Rice picking up where he left off last year, a 1-2-3 inning. Brantley greets Church with a base hit up the middle. And the Marlins have their 4th hit of the game. So Ed Lucas will be the batter. Lucas grounded out to short. Nice play by Quintanilla his first time up.
We see a lot of things put into action here. We've seen some stolen bases. Ed Lucas is, during the regular season, would be a guy that Mike Redmond would use in a hit and run situation.
Knocked down by Teagarden. The one-hop throw skips into center field, and Brantley will stay at second base. Good aggressive base running by Brantley. Took off as soon as that ball hit the dirt, but a better throw by Teagarden, and he might have gotten it.
You know what's interesting? That in spring training, players work on this so much. Ball in the dirt, they try to get that good secondary lead and advance a base. You don't see it as much in the regular season. Very aggressive play by Brantley. Saratelli could have came up with that. Real tough play. He would have been out.
Well, Teagarden's had to make 3 throws today to second base. He's got a very easy motion. You can see why he was so highly regarded for so long defensively. Slap to the right side. Lucas advances the runner. Lucas Duda makes the play for the first down. So runner at third with 1 out. And Mets will bring the infield in. And here is Austin Barnes, who hit the home run that gave the Marlins their run against Farnsworth in the third. Austin Barnes out of Arizona State. Last year played single A and double A, hit .272, 5 home runs. And he gets plunked. Breaking ball from Church. And Barnes is aboard.
Well, it was one of those spinners, came out of his hand. Supposed to be a slider down and away. Never broke. Just stayed right on the numbers or the name of Austin Barnes. You know, we always talk about hitters, situational hitting. We never talk about pitchers, situational pitching. There's 1 out. He's a guy, Church, who likes to keep the ball down in the strike zone. What you're thinking about here, I want to get a ground ball. That's what you attempt to do in these situations. Now, tougher for John Church. He's trying to make a ball club, trying to impress. But that's what you would work on here if you were inclined.
There's Jake Marisnick with first and third and 1 out. Marisnick, a strikeout and an infield hit, stole a base in the third.
Signs in spring training usually are very simple.
Swing the bat.
Yeah, swing the bat, but you want to keep it simple because you have, I mean, most of these teams have between 60 and 70 players in camp. Some are very good at reading the signs, some are not very good. So you want to trend towards the lowest common denominator as far as reading signs.
That's Andy Haynes, who will be the AAA manager for the Marlins this year, coaching third base. Marlins have a split squad today, with the other half of their team back in Jupiter playing the Cardinals. And as that ball hits the dirt, Barnes takes off for second, and now that takes the double play out of order, the second wild pitch of the inning.
Again, the two catchers now tried the block here by Teagarden. Brantley and the DH, who's a catcher, Austin Barnes, advancing.
Mets will move their infield back here, second and third and one out. 3-0 now to Marisnick. And a fastball strike.
Infield back, of course, going to give up the run here with one out.
And Church works his way back to 3-2. Christian Yelich waiting on deck. I saw something today that really quite shocked me. Remember 2 years ago, the Marlins really went for it. It was the first year of the new stadium, and they spent some money, and they signed Jose Reyes to the long-term contract, and they brought in Mark Burley, and they tried to do it up.
The Reyes months.
Exactly. And they wound up having a terrible year. They lost 92 games. Do you know how many players the Marlins have left from their 2012 opening day roster?
And Stanton.
4 players.
Wow.
Stanton. That one goes to the backstop. Third wild pitch of the inning. Play at the plate, and Church makes the tag, but too late. Well, ball got there in time, but Brantley able to slide in safely to make it 2-1 Miami.
Well, good hustle here by Brantley, good hustle by Teagarden, but see the little delay by Church in covering? What you have to do as a pitcher is you got to run to a spot where you're going to catch the ball and know you can slap it right in front of the plate. He kind of slaps it on the plate and late. Good call by the home plate umpire.
Chris Conroy, the home plate umpire, maybe he was just trying to give him a lane.
Well, for you people asking, which is pretty interesting, we always talk about the home plate collisions in reference to the runners and the catcher. It also applies to anyone covering home plate like John Church.
Who's the pitcher.
Yeah.
So it's a walk to Marisnick, a wild pitch bringing home the run. 3 wild pitches in the inning, and that brings Dan Warthen out for a conversation.
You know, you say to yourself, you know, how can this kind of inning happen to a quality pitcher? And what happens, Gary, you go out there, you're a little nervous, and the next thing you know, you bounce a couple of big balls, and the floodgates open, and you're like, how did this happen so quickly?
Well, a guy like John Church, who's been in the Mets organization for 5 years, this is his first big league camp, his first big league exhibition game, and
it's natural.
It may only be a 5,000, 6,000 seat stadium. It's still the big leagues. Here's Christian Yelich, and he pops one up into shallow center. No chance to tag. And wind blowing the ball toward the line, and Dendecker goes over to grab it. Boy, that ball when it first went up was in straightaway center field. It blew all the way over to left. That's the second out.
That was a nice play by Dendecker because Omar Quintanilla got completely turned around, and Dendecker with that hustle called him off. It's a much easier play for the left fielder. You're right, Gary. See where it starts? And Quintanilla has to work his way back to the right. You know, baseball players have a phrase. They'll say that's a major league pop-up. What is a major league pop-up? When it's high enough that even the players get a little nervous.
High enough that the left fielder can catch it almost on the infield grass.
Right.
So 2 out, first and third. There goes the runner from first. Teagarden throws through. The throw coming back to the plate, and the tag by Teagarden to get the sliding Barnes for the third out. Nicely executed by the Mets. And they keep the run off the board. Anthony Serratelli with the throwback. Teagarden blocked the plate enough and made the tag on Barnes. Gave him a lane, didn't it?
No lane.
Kyle Skipworth doing the catching. Grant Dayton is doing the pitching.
Let's see his numbers. Huntsville, Alabama. Went to Auburn University, an Auburn Tiger. Left-hander, 26 years old.
New left fielder Joe Benson as Yelich came out of the game. Matt Dendecker up for the second time. Here's that play at the plate. And tell me how this comports with the new rules.
I don't think it works. Watch when he throws. Watch his left leg when he catches the ball. There's no lane there.
Well, but here's the thing, and this is what confuses me.
Well, that's why.
You can't block the plate without the ball, but he's got the ball, so...
I'm saying that, okay, he's got the baseball, right? But let's say that he juggles the baseball. There's no lane for the guy to slide.
So you're saying even if he knows he's going to be able to catch, if the ball's going to beat him by 10 feet like that, he still has to not block the plate until he has the ball.
Catch the ball in front of the plate, you have plenty of time, and then apply the tag. At that position right there, if he had bobbled the ball, there was no place or lane for the runner to slide. He would have had to stop.
So from a rule standpoint, is this technically a play where the catcher should be called for blocking the plate too early?
Well, this is why it's going to be a nightmare, because you're looking at this. I mean, where would you slide, Gary? And you see the slide there by Barnes? There was no place for him to go, so he slid 4 feet right at the plate and just was an automatic out. Now, where's the lane? Between his legs?
Well, but between his legs, maybe you get the front corner of the plate. Maybe behind his left foot, you get the back point of the plate. But to me, that's not the point here.
Yeah.
The point is that if the play is going to not be close in a situation like that, is it still the responsibility of the catcher to not put his foot there until he has the ball? Because that doesn't sound right.
No, I think, listen, that play was, if you didn't have the rule, that play was done perfectly.
Right.
Perfectly by Teagarden.
Up the middle, and Dendecker has a base hit.
So watch, where can Barnes go? The only place he can slide is 3 to 4 feet right of the plate, which means he would never be able to reach back and touch the plate anyway.
But, again, where we froze it there, Teagarden already has the ball. So that's not the key.
So it's almost like a phantom tag, too, because he doesn't want any mix-up.
Right.
But my point is, what if he had bobbled the ball? Where is Mr. Barnes supposed to go? Nowhere in that circumstance.
Right, and that's where you have the possibility of a collision without the ball in the hand of the catcher. So I guess the bottom line is, what you're saying is that even on a play like that, which seems so cut and dried, he's out by such a large margin, he still has to stay in front of the plate until he catches the ball and then move back.
I think that's how the play is going to be.
To make the extra move as opposed to just catching the ball in the proper spot, which is what he did.
You're almost going to have to think about being a first baseman, Gary. You are waiting for the throw with your foot kind of in front of the plate as opposed to first baseman has it on the bag, and you're going to reach out for the throw, and if the throw brings you a different place, like a first baseman off the bag and with the tag, that's how it's going to look.
Anthony Serratelli up for the second time, turning around about right-handed against the lefty Grant Dayton.
And we saw yesterday that the Mets used the pickoff play with Danny Munoz at second base, and he blocked second base, and he had no chance to slide into the bag. So it doesn't apply to other positions. This is going to be some fun.
Josh Edgen, the next man up in the Mets bullpen.
We've had him in the booth before. We might have to a little text message over to Tony La Russa and have him in the booth for one of these games, right?
Well, I know that what they put on paper is being called experimental and being called a compromise. But I haven't heard a lot of players, other than catchers, endorsing it. I understand from a catcher's perspective it makes perfect sense because now the gratuitous running of the catcher is going to be outlawed. But from a base runner's standpoint, it's extremely confusing. And that particular situation, even for the catcher, it's confusing exactly what he's supposed to do.
You know what's going to could lend itself to is that the base runners are going to start getting angry that there's no place for them to go. And where are they going to take it out on? Second baseman and shortstop. Watch that this season. I mean, there's collateral stuff happening here, right?
Well, I mean, look, it's a learning process for everybody, and everybody will adjust to the rule as best they can. It's just that there's not necessarily a lot of clarity about how certain plays are going to work, and that's a classic example right there. And you're right. If Teagarden does not catch that ball cleanly with the plate blocked the way it was, then you've got a problem in terms of the way the rule is written.
I think, you know, what's interesting about it is that everyone is 100% behind the egregious headhunting of a runner trying to hurt a catcher. Absolutely.
So the question is, why didn't they just write a rule that said you can't go after a catcher unless he's blocked the plate?
Yeah. And the discretion of the umpire, if he believes that someone is headhunting, or not headhunting is the wrong word, trying to injure the catcher, ejection immediately and out, whether he catches the ball or not.
Eighth pitch of the at-bat coming to Serratelli with Dendecker at first and nobody out. And he goes down on strikes for the second time. So there's the first out of the inning. First strikeout for Grant Dayton in relief.
Fastball just beats Anthony.
So now Omar Quintanilla up for the second time. Quintanilla struck out his first time up. Terry Collins trying to demonstrate for the catchers how they're supposed to catch the ball, block the plate. But there you see, even on that one, right? Teagarden had to move to his left.
That's right.
And now he was blocking the plate before he caught the ball.
What are catchers taught since they're start catching? Where do you want to catch the ball, Gary? You want to try to catch in the middle of your body.
Now that what he just did there is an illegal play now, right?
Yeah.
Because he had the plate blocked before he caught the ball.
You got it.
And here's the other piece. I mean, there's been so much attention paid to teaching the catchers the new rule. What about everybody else?
The runners.
Everybody else in the game, including pitchers running the bases. I mean, they all need to know how this is going to work. And I keep coming back to this, and I hate to belabor the point, but if you say there's a little flare on the left side and Lucas is over to get it, if you say that you can still hit a catcher who has the plate blocked, if he does block the plate, right, has the ball, blocks the plate legally, you can run him over. But you can't lower your shoulder and you can't extend your arm. Somebody's going to get hurt bad.
You got to run into like Gumby. I mean, how do you do it?
Face to face?
I don't know how you do it. So let's boy, we're rambling on here. I apologize. So do you believe that Austin Barnes could have run over Taylor Teagarden?
Sure, of course, because he had the ball and he had the plate block. So according to the new rule, sure, Teagarden was fair game to be run into. Now nobody's going to do that in spring training.
Yeah.
But if you're in an important game, it's the ninth inning, a tie game. If I'm the manager, I still want my guy to be running over the catcher and scoring the run.
Yeah.
Brad Dayton out of Auburn University. The most illustrious pitching alumni of which will now be playing his trade in the Bay Area, Mr. Hudson.
That's right. He wasn't a bad hitter at Auburn either.
No.
I know Keith mentioned it yesterday, but that Lincecum Hudson mentor, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, might be very fruitful for the Giants.
Lincecum's such a hard one to judge, though.
Yeah.
Because of the offbeat mechanics, because of the offbeat personality, you don't know exactly where he's coming from sometimes.
He's mercurial, isn't he?
1-2 to Chris Young. Marlins keep their pitchers rolling in the bullpen. That is Rhett Varner.
I thought that was the steal of the winter because it happened so quickly. Do you think any other team would have thought twice of signing Tim Hudson to 2 years at $11 million each year? Coming off a
devastating ankle injury.
Better than a devastating arm injury.
Which, unfortunately, we witnessed in person. Casey McGee to the front of the mound to grab it. And that retires the side. Mets going to lead off hit from Dendecker, but no more. 5 in the books now in St. Lucie. 2-1 Miami. Mo in center field. And on to pitch for the Mets is Josh Edgen.
Well, this is a huge spring training for Josh Edgen. He came with much aplomb when he first was brought up to the big leagues. That great, boring, B-O-R-I-N-G, like good fastball. In those 34 games last season, you see the numbers.
Jeff Baker will lead off for the Marlins in the 6th inning, and as he does, we're joined from the Mets dugout by Henry Mejia. Henry, how you doing?
I feel pretty good.
Tell me, when's your first appearance in a spring game?
Wednesday.
So, how was your off season? You had the elbow surgery to come back from, with the thoughts of how well you pitched late in the season in the back of your mind. What was your winter like?
That was pretty good. I wasn't Dominican. I was in Dominican complex. Working out of there, working about all my pitches, and big ball 100%.
At what point did you feel as though you were, ready to go coming back from the elbow surgery?
Now I feel 100%.
But it took a couple of months after the surgery?
Yeah, a couple of months, like 3 or 4 months.
Henry, has your fastball always had that great kind of cutting action ever since you were a young pitcher?
No, that's started coming like in 2010 when I was like reliever, but I never have that cut. Usually when I get here, 2010.
I think what impressed us the most when you came back to the big leagues last year was the command that you had, the ability to throw strikes with all of your pitches. How did that progress last year as you were trying to make your way back to the big leagues?
That progressed pretty good. When I was here during all my work, I'm starting to work like all my pitches. I'm starting to work like a slider. I don't always have that, but when I was here in the Gold Cup League, you remember I have like elbow hair, but I'm working every day about my pitches. And when I was here, I pitched in Port St. Lucie. When they called me, it wasn't AA, like 2 or 3 started. But that coming pretty good.
Henry, when you were down here and you're rehabbing your arm injuries, who was the biggest influence that helped you down here in Port St. Lucie?
I have too many people over here. Yeah, because I always have Francisco, Divo was there. Divo always worked with me. And Dave Peterson. I have a couple people over there.
Henry, there's been so much conversation since your career began. You were just 20 years old when you came to the big leagues as a relief pitcher, and then you weren't used a whole lot, and then the injuries began, and then you went to the starting rotation. There's been a lot of ups and downs for you at a very young age. Do you feel that at this point you've finally gotten to the point where you can just concentrate on doing your job and winning a job in the rotation?
I feel pretty good right now. I feel that working good because, like what you're talking about. When I come here, I come like reliever and then starter, reliever. It's too more work, but now I feel pretty good. I feel like I can make the team like a starter now. Now,
the most important thing I always ask pitchers, how's your hitting going in the cage?
That going better. I'm working every day about my hitting and bomb play. That's going to be better.
Okay.
Duda can't find the handle, and everybody's safe. Well, Henry, best of luck to you, and we look forward to watching you out there on Wednesday, and hope you have a great spring.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right.
All right.
So Duda might have had a chance for 2. Instead, it rolls up his arm, and he gets none.
Well, that was one of those plays where I think that he was thinking about throwing the ball before he secured the play. You know, it would be sweet redemption for me to see Henry Mejia have some great success at this level, Gary, because, you know, that first year, how do you say it? It just was unfortunate how he was not used.
He was mishandled.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be straight about it. I mean, if he was going to be in the big leagues at age 20, he had to be used regularly, and it just didn't work out that way. You had a manager who was fighting for his job, and that's sometimes the worst possible thing for a player. Here's Reed Johnson with the bases loaded, and he takes high for ball 1. But I think, you know, he's only 24 years old now. He's kind of back at square one. And we were talking yesterday about the difference between last spring and this spring with how a guy like Den Decker is looked at, or 2 years ago the way Neuenhuis was looked at. Well, by the time Mejia came back last season, everybody had kind of forgotten about him. And then all of a sudden, for those few starts that he made at the end of the year, he popped your eyes out and you remembered why he was so highly regarded.
He had that start in Washington where he was unhittable.
I mean, look at those numbers for the 5 starts he made, and that was with his elbow barking the entire time. 4 walks, 27 strikeouts. He had that razor blade slider we had never seen before.
You know, to put 24 years old into perspective, my first full year in the major leagues, I turned 24 in August that year. This is the time that you take off, and maybe it's the time for Henry to take off.
Josh Edgen trying to find out of a bases loaded jam, couple of ground ball singles and an infield error. Loading him up for Reed Johnson, who's 0 for 2 today. Line to left, base hit for Johnson. Baker's in to score. The pinch runner Moran will score. A 2-run single for Reed Johnson makes it 4-1 Miami.
Well, the worst possible scenario for Josh Edgen here in this inning. 3 hard hit balls and an error. Produces a couple of runs. Just think of all the Mets hits that would have been saved if Reed Johnson had been in a Mets uniform. I mean, every time he's up there, he hits the ball hard.
It is amazing, isn't it? There are horses for courses. And in Reed Johnson's case, the Mets are his favorite racetrack. Here's Rob Brantley. Check it, it's Skipworth, Kyle Skipworth, who took over behind the plate for Brantley. Still nobody out in the inning. Out to center field, and Nimmo is there. 1 out. So now Ed Lucas up for the 3rd time. He's gone 0 for 2. Edgen dots the outside corner. 0-1. Dietrich, the runner at second. Matt Angle is a pinch runner on at first.
Change up there from Edgen. You don't see a lot of that usually.
Josh had his season cut short by a fractured rib last year. Fought his way back from it. But things have not gone in a straight line for Josh after 2 years ago just popping eyes during spring training and coming in and making a contribution that year. He's been unable to sustain that success at the big league level.
Honestly, I'm a little shocked that he's had this kind of turn of events in his career. Right? When I look at him, I see a guy with 90 plus, a guy with a good breaking ball, certainly enough to get big league hitters out. But I don't know if it's a lack of confidence here, maybe a little lack of control.
Pickoff try. Back safely is Dietrich.
You folks at home probably asking, you never see that play during the season. It's true. Usually once a game they put that play on to work on it in spring training, and sometimes it gets forgotten about during the regular season.
You never forgot about it.
No. Well, you have as many guys on as I did. You get very good at that.
I've said it before, but I've never seen two guys execute the pickoff at second as well as you and Kevin Elster did.
Well, we became really good friends, so I don't know if this is true or not true, but when you're really good friends with people, you can sense things. You have that little internal kind of sense of when he's going to do it, and I could always tell when he was going to try to pick off.
Edge not throwing particularly hard. His fastball's been 87 to 89 this afternoon.
Which doesn't alarm me early in spring training. It would alarm me if it's the third week of spring training.
But is it different when you're in the position that Edgin's in, where he's got to make the ball club? Wouldn't you figure that he would be a little further along?
You would think that, Gary, but and I'm not saying this is the case with Josh as he walks at Lucas, is that everyone has an experience in the off season. We talked about the ones for some of the players in Michigan, the ultimate kind of training camp. Not everyone is going at it that hard. And I'm not saying that Josh wasn't, but so everyone comes to camp in different shapes.
So Ryan Reed up in the Mets bullpen. So the base is loaded for the Marlins. They already have 2 runs home here in the 6th. Austin Barnes, the 7th man up in the inning. He's already homered and been hit by a pitch today. And he grounds one through the hole for another base hit. Dietrich scores. Engel is stopped at third. The ball gets away. The plate is uncovered, and Engel scores. Centeno went to get the ball instead of Edgin, who was properly backing up. And that allowed Engel to walk home with the second run to make it 5-1.
Well, sloppy inning here by the Mets. Another ground ball that finds that hole between third and short. Nice job by Matt Dendecker. But he overthrows the cutoff guy, so maybe not as great. I can't fault Josh Edgin there. He's at the right angle, because from the left fielder throw, that ball should be on that angle.
It's an odd play because Centeno was trying to go a long way to get the ball. At what point does the catcher abandon his effort to get it, let the pitcher catch it, and get back to cover home plate?
Catchers are starting to feel, Gary, because pitchers don't back up as often, that they always have to go get the ball.
Isn't that interesting?
Right?
So it's a single to drive in a run. Then the error on Dendecker brings it the second run. It's been a nightmare inning for Edgin. 4 runs home, thanks in part to a couple of errors. And it's 6-1 Miami. This is Brent Keys batting with runners at second and third.
Interesting watching Keys up at the plate from the left side here, or his batting stance reminds me a little of Nick Swisher.
Little looper, and that's going to fall in for a base hit. Lucas comes in to score the 5th run of the inning. Brent Keys with an RBI single to make it 7-1 Miami. And you wonder how many more pitches Edgin can throw in this inning. Might be getting toward his pitch limit. "24 pitches in your first inning of the spring is pushing it." Now Joe Benson will come up for the first time. Benson took over in left field for Christian Yelich. Barnes is at third. Keys at first. Still only one out with 5 runs home in the inning. Well, Ryan Reed is all loosened up and ready to go in the Mets bullpen if needed. And Edge having his troubles. 1-0 to Benson. Cut off by Lutz. Gets the out at second. Ceratelli the relay, and the Mets turn 2 to get Edge through the inning. 9 men come to bat for the Marlins. Mets commit 2 errors, and the Marlins score 5. And
tough, right?
I mean, I have enough problems keeping track just up here.
You know, what I always feel in between innings and when they make all these changes is that you feel compelled to make sure you get them in, because you never know who's watching. Their family, you know, it might be their only chance to see their son play.
Rhett Varner is the new pitcher for the Marlins.
Interesting spelling of that first name, right?
Left out the H.
Gone with the H.
Dirk Neuenhuis, who knows the thing about spelling a name. There were competitions 2 years ago to see who could nail his last name first.
I'm working on his. I'm still working on Samardzija for the Cubs.
Still trying to get Yastrzemski.
Yeah.
Neuenhuis 1 for 2 today, and Varner quickly falls behind him 3-0. There are a bunch of changes for the Marlins, but honestly, I have no idea who half of them are. We'll pick them up as we go along, though. I mean, early in spring training, you always see hosts of players, but particularly for the Marlins today, we're playing a split squad game.
You know, the most interesting part for me about that split squad is that we did not get a chance to see. Now, their split squad is the Marlins against the Cardinals at that complex in Jupiter. Neuenhuis walks. Is Rafael Furcal playing second base.
Well, they're going slow with him this spring. Yeah. You know, he had the Tommy John surgery last year, and they've taken a flyer on Furcal as a second baseman. And I think there's a little bit of disagreement right now between the powers that be with the Marlins and Furcal as to whether he's ready to play in games. But they've got a backup plan. They've got Dietrich. They've got Donovan Solano, who played there last year. Here's Andrew Brown, who's struck out and flied out, serving as the DH today. Varner throws a fastball for a strike. Rhett Varner went to the same college as Dylan G, University of Texas at Arlington.
Okay.
He was a 6th round pick by the Marlins, unlike Dylan, who lasted till the 21st round.
It could have been my home if it hadn't been saved by the Mets. You can't imagine me in Texas, can you?
They might have been playing for Bobby V in Texas.
Whoa. Cowboy boots, big buckles.
I think you landed in the right place.
Yes, I did.
More of a cosmopolitan kind of guy. Andrew Brown, Cornhusker, University of Nebraska, but he's a Texas guy.
I never think of Nebraska as producing a lot of baseball players. Of course, the great football teams they've always had.
Well, their best baseball player that I can remember was a football player.
Well,
Darren Erskine.
He's a punter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
A great punter.
I think
a better baseball player.
I think he led off one year and had 100 RBIs at a leadoff spot.
I think he was the first one ever to do that.
Wow. Gamer.
And breaking ball gets Brown. Second time he struck out today. 1 out of the 6th.
Well, Varner's just having a little problem with control, but you can see why they like him. Good breaking ball there.
Well, the Mets have scored just 1 run today, and it came on one explosive swing by Lucas Duda, who hit one to the back of the berm in right field against the wind in the 4th inning. You know, sometimes competitions don't come down as advertised. First 2 days of spring training games, it's been exactly what you'd like to see. 2 guys in competition for a job, and both on their A game so far. Davis yesterday, Duda today. It is anybody's guess how this is going to come out, because it's hard to believe, as much as they've talked about the possibility of keeping both of them and having Lucas play some outfield, it's hard to believe that they'll both be on the team on opening day.
Well, when we hear all that talk of how many at-bats are going to get during spring, that is for Mets eyes, but other eyes too.
Absolutely. There will be scouts in the stands every day, as there always are in spring training.
You know, that was a really good example, Gary, of that getting that foot down in time. You know, the timing of the foot planting and the bat going through the strike zone. Boy, he's got a good swing working right now.
Well, he hit a couple of balls very hard yesterday, one to left center and one to right center. Even though on the one to right center yesterday, he broke his bat and hit it to the warning track.
Right.
And then today, the long home run. Funny thing about trying to win a job in spring training, you know, when you have a long season, any hitter is going to have ups and downs.
Yeah.
So whether those 30 games in spring training happen to coincide with one of your up periods might determine whether you spend the next 6 months in the major leagues. Got him looking at the off-speed pitch. Back-to-back strikeouts for Red Varner, 2 out of the inning.
This shouldn't be fair on February 1st. The backdoor breaking ball, March 1st, sorry. That backdoor breaking ball, no chance.
I'm not sure that's fair on August 1st.
That's right. You're right.
2 out, New and High still at first, and now Zach Lutz, who's been up twice and caught looking both times. Lutz now 27 years old. One of 2 Mets to hail from tiny Alvernia College, where he and Anthony Recker both played for Zach's dad, Yogi Lutz, longtime Division III coach.
It's amazing, isn't it? Both end up at the same place.
I think I read something the other day where last year, in the entire major leagues, there were only 6 players from Division III schools in the big leagues the entire season, and 2 of them were from the same school playing for the same team, Lutz and Recker.
Wow.
Think of how many Division III schools there are in the country playing baseball.
Saw John Lannon start the game today. Siena, is that a Division I school?
I, yeah. It's Mac, Manhattan, and Iona, those schools.
Oh, okay. Wagner in that? Maybe not.
Wagner's different conference.
Okay.
Lutz down on strikes, 3 straight strikeouts after the leadoff walk. Red Varner with an impressive inning. That's 10 strikeouts for Marlin pitching today and a 7-1 lead after. And the new Met pitcher is the James Madison University product, Ryan Reed.
Well, you see his numbers with the Pirates last year. Just appeared in 7 games for that ball club.
The only guy I can remember who went to James Madison who played in the major leagues was our friend Billy Sample.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. I was checking because I figured he went to James Madison.
Colin Moran is up for the first time. Moran now playing third base for the Marlins. And he takes outside from Reed, who pitched last year in the Pittsburgh organization for Indianapolis. And it's Josh Spence up in the Marlins bullpen. Well, the Marlins have been doing a lot of hitting back up the middle today, and Moran has their latest base hit. Here's Kyle Jensen. Or maybe we have our hitters backwards. That was Jensen who got the hit.
Okay.
And now Moran coming to bat. It's spring training for the graphics people too. Our friend Ringo in the truck just had a little transposition between 65 and 85. But haven't we all had that problem?
That's called the graphics dyslexia, Gary.
I think rather than focusing on Kyle Jensen, he was probably thinking about last night at the Jensen Ale House.
Yes.
Nothing in 2 to Moran.
Well, when you have an old crew like we have, you know, you sometimes have to live vicariously through some of your younger members. So,
well, it's good to know that our crack team in the truck is having a good time in their stint in Florida. That plane's almost as old as we are, by the way.
Coffee, tea, or me.
There's a good breaking ball by Reed, and he gets the foul tip for the third strike. Moran is down for the first out of the inning.
Good breaking ball from Reed. Ryan, watching him throw, kind of a short armor. And what does that mean? He doesn't have that long, fluid throw that we saw yesterday with Rafael Montero. Really just brings it up to his ear like a catcher and lets it go.
This is Austin Nola batting for the first time. And takes a fastball for a strike. Nola, an LSU product. 5th round pick by the Marlins in 2012. Played down here in the Florida State League last year. For the Jupiter Hammerheads.
As in the Shark?
I guess.
What a great place to play the Florida State League.
Well, they've got the big league stadium,
that's right,
which is the plus.
Just too hot.
The minus is it gets a little steamy here in the summertime. And also, if you're a hitter, this is not a great league for hitting home runs. It's a good pitchers league. Kind of the opposite of playing in Las Vegas, which is where the Mets will have their AAA team for at least one more year. Much to the dismay of virtually everybody in the organization.
Is Waldo back this year?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Wally's been around during spring training. Re-upped for another year, managing the 51s.
Very nice.
Corey Mazzoni is up in the Mets bullpen. One of the bright young pitching prospects in the Mets organization. Oh, and 2 to Nola. And he goes down on strikes. So back-to-back strikeouts for Ryan Reed.
Well, Ryan's strength, as we've seen here with 2 consecutive strikeouts, is that good, hard breaking ball. I was at the meetings, general managers meetings in Florida this year, Gary, and I met the ownership group and the people involved with the Las Vegas Ball Club, and they couldn't have been more effusive in their praise of Wally Backman.
Wally is a guy who makes friends.
He does.
Matt Angle, who played his college baseball in Columbus, Ohio for the Ohio State University. Don't forget the Ohio State University. Takes inside ball 1. Angle had a little bit of big league time with the Orioles in 2011. Signed as a free agent this winter by the Marlins. And he lofts one out to right center. A lot of room out there, and Nimmo's not going to get to it. Rounding third is Jensen. He's going to come on home. Heading for third now is Angle, and he slides in safely with an RBI triple. And it's 8-1 Miami. So Matt Angle found the right angle, the empty gap in right center.
Well, it's been interesting the last 2 days. We've seen the outfielders in center and right playing very shallow, and with the wind blowing out, just no chance for them to get back on those baseballs. You know what? Check that. The wind is blowing in.
In, out, they still couldn't catch it. So a run is in. Here's Skipworth up for the second time. Fly to center his first time up. Little chopper. Serratelli on the backhand. Low thrown. Pulled out nicely by Clark. And that'll end the inning. Marlins tack on a run on Matt Angle's RBI triple. It's seventh inning stretch time in St. Lucie. 8-1 Miami. I hope he finds what he's looking for. Former San Diego Padre Josh Spence will pitch for the Marlins in the bottom of the seventh.
He'll have some interest in that Dodger Diamondback series at the cricket fields in Australia. You know, the first real good player, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, from Australia that I remember was Dave Nielsen, the catcher for the Milwaukee Brewers.
And he was really an ambassador for baseball for Australia. Went back and single-handedly put together their Olympic program. And they've had trouble at times maintaining a league there, but they're trying to reinvigorate it this year with the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, and Sydney's got a team, and you know they're trying to see if they can not only have baseball, which they do, but make it a viable league there to compete with the more popular sports like Australian rules football.
Well, I'm going to go down a road. You know how you always say a lawyer should never ask a question he doesn't know the answer to, but I'm going to do it anyway. Didn't the Mets have a shortstop that was from Australia?
Yeah.
Craig something?
Yes. Shipley. Craig
Shipley. There you go.
Juan Santana up for the first time. When we look back in 10 years, Juan Santana will have a distinction that may shine even brighter than it does right now. Last year, when the Mets were in Cincinnati in September, he became the first major league catcher to throw out Billy Hamilton trying to steal.
That's right.
And after Billy Hamilton steals a few hundred bases, or 1,000 bases, that will be a mark that Santana will always have. Over toward left center, and Benson gets over to grab it to retire Santana one away. Billy Hamilton looks like he's going to be the leadoff hitter and center fielder for the Reds this year. You know, obviously he's had issues about getting on base, but there's nobody faster in the game.
I've honestly, in my lifetime, have never seen a runner come into a game as a pinch runner and get a standing ovation from the entire crowd. It was electric in Great American Ballpark last year when the Mets were there.
Here's Corey Vaughn up for the first time, and he lifts one to shallow right, and that's the second out of the inning. Corey Vaughn, son of former big leaguer Greg Vaughn, and Corey, as many of you may know, is a type 1 diabetic. You see his back left pocket? In that back left pocket is his pump.
It's very interesting. I mean, as many of you guys know at home, my youngest son, Jordan, is a type 1 diabetic, and you can see the pump and the wire going into like the lower back of.
So when he's got a little
Corey Vaughn.
Port in his body? Port
in his body, exactly. And he puts it in his left pocket because he says he slides on his right pocket.
Better never forget.
Yeah.
Anthony Serratelli has struck out his first two at-bats. Now, you know, as the father of a type 1 diabetic, how big a challenge is that to be a big league player or a professional baseball player trying to deal with that?
Well, one it's very interesting that, you know, my son who has it, he will look at a guy like Corey Vaughn and say, boy, he's my hero for playing pro ball, but it's very hard. The diet, the travel, everything that's involved makes it very challenging for Corey.
That's around 1, 2, 3 in the bottom of the 7th. On we go to the 8th in Port St. Lucie. Corey base Anthony Serratelli slides over to play short, and the NC State product Corey Mazzoni will pitch the 8th inning.
Well, he is one of the bright arms. His year, only 12 starts last season, but throws awfully hard.
Had a hamstring problem that curtailed his season last year as Juan Diaz gets his first at bat for Miami.
What's interesting about those confrontations when you're coming back for injury and Wright stands in there, there's a feeling as a pitcher of thanks for standing in there. I know it's not easy, you don't have the adrenaline working as a hitter, so it's really pitcher's kind of practice, and you're thankful that the guys stand in there and give you a chance to pitch to a hitter.
I mean, the Mets have other options if Parnell were not well. Certainly Vic Black might get a shot. They've got a former closer in Jose Valverde in camp. But it would be great for the Mets if Parnell could step back in and do what he did for the first 4 months of the season last year.
Well, the whole thing, it's like having someone out of the middle of your lineup, Gary. You have depth. If he's 100%, then, Vic Black can set him up. And now you have some really strong arms up and down.
Well, Parnell was just happy to get back out there on the mound, and here's what he had to say after that batting practice session was done this morning.
Been taking a lot of baby steps. I feel great. Arm feels good, neck feels good, legs feel great. So, everything's going well. But as far as today, this is I feel like a big mental hurdle, and I didn't know how I would react to balls coming off the bat, and I felt like I felt strong out there. I felt good, and I felt like I had some reaction in the neck. So everything's good.
Bobby not only is coming back from the neck surgery, he also had a little bit of a quad problem this spring. He said he can still feel it a little bit. He's much better, but he said he's not quite up to Eric Young's speed yet. Austin Barnes has had a big day at the plate for Miami. He got them started with a home run in the 3rd inning, hit by a pitch, and then an RBI single in the 6th. So the minor league catcher Barnes getting to be the DH today and having a nice day. Meanwhile, Corey Mazzoni having trouble throwing strikes in his spring debut. Mazzoni, as Ronnie mentioned, only 12 starts last year, got short-circuited by a hamstring injury, but he's a guy who generally throws strikes. Last year, 19 walks in 66 innings. And another one of those guys who just doesn't give up home runs.
Yeah.
Only 4 home runs allowed in 66 innings.
Binghamton is another place that's a pretty good pitcher's park, isn't it? Starts out cold in April.
Yep. And all those parks in the Eastern League, they're big.
Yeah.
Nobody hits home runs in the Eastern League. But when organizations do statistical analysis and they talk about pitchers, they talk about the 3 true outcomes. The 3 things that pitchers have the most control over: walks, strikeouts, and home runs. And Mazzoni grades well on all those things. For his career, 2.3 walks per 9 innings, 7.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. But he's issued back-to-back walks to the first 2 hitters he's faced in this game. It's 5 walks by Met pitching today.
Well, you can see him wiping his hand on his back pocket. He's just, these are the nerves of a young pitcher. Been waiting all day, sitting in that bullpen, grinding on knowing that you're going to be in the game at some point, and here it comes.
Brent Keys gets a second at bat, blooped a single to left to drive in a run in the 6th inning, where the Marlins scored 5 times. 2 on and nobody out. Yeah, that's toward the middle on the backhand. Muno. Serratelli with the turn. Not in time. Very close play, but Keys able to beat it out and avoid the double play.
Keys can run. Nice play here. Muno to Serratelli. Good throw. Everything perfect. Just the good speed of Keys. Good call there. No replay yet.
It was announced yesterday that they are going to experiment, test the new replay rules in selected spring training games. And the Mets will be involved in a couple of those. I think the first one is coming up next week.
Yeah, March 7th.
March the 7th. That's next Wednesday. That's Henry Mejia's start, as he told us.
Henry's start, and I've got that game, so
I'm glad you'll be here to try and parse all of the nuances of the replay rule, as we've been able to do with the home plate collision rule today.
I'll have my nose in the rule book.
Joe Benson up for the second time, grounded into a double play, his first. And Mazzoni would love one of those here to get himself through the inning. John Lannon started this game for the Mets, and he looked good. 2 innings in his first outing in a Mets uniform. Didn't allow a run. No walks, 3 strikeouts. Cal Farnsworth got touched for a run in his inning. Scott Rice worked a perfect inning. John Church a scoreless inning, and then Josh Edgin, with a couple of errors made behind him, gave up 5 in the 6th. And Ryan Reed was tagged for a run in the 7th. Diaz the runner at third and Keys at first. Mets tomorrow will be in Jupiter to play the Cardinals, and Daisuke Matsuzaka will get his first crack at throwing down the gauntlet for that 5th starter's job. We got some clarification, by the way, because we discussed it yesterday about Daisuke and his contract status.
Yeah.
He has an opt-out at the end of May. So if the Mets want to send him to the minor leagues, they can do that. And then a couple of months into the season, if he's not called up, he can opt out of his contract. We were talking about that in the context of, do you give the advantage to the veteran pitcher to hang on to him? Popped up down the line. Tough play over the shoulder by Lawley, and he's got it. What a play by Dustin Lawley. Lawley, a big slugger down here at Port St. Lucie last year, playing mostly in the outfield, but he made a terrific play.
Nice job battling those shadows, close to the wall, stayed with it. Nice hustle. Everything's great there. Very surprised that the runner on third did not tag. See how this ball takes him towards the pitching mound. Guy fell asleep on third. Okay, it's a foul ball, so you should be standing on third base, thinking about scoring. See how that ball takes him? And just they made the conservative decision not to run.
Last year, Lawley played only 2 games at third base. Check that. He played 15 games at third base. The runner at first base did tag as Keys went to second on the play. But Lawley has been mostly an outfielder throughout his career. But what the Mets like most about Dustin Lawley is the fact that here in St. Lucie, which is not a big power league, he had 25 home runs. And 1 more for Las Vegas after a late season call-up. And in an organization that is putting a premium on power, he's getting a big look. Certainly not ready for the big leagues at this point, but the Mets are not stocked with a lot of power in their organization, and Lawley is a guy who has put up power numbers.
6'1", 195. That's kind of David Wright numbers, right?
Howard Johnson.
Howard Johnson.
Jensen goes down on strikes, and Mazzoni's able to work his way through the inning with some help from Dustin Lawley. We go to the bottom of the 8th, 8-1 Miami. Listening to that music. Danny Muno will lead off for the Mets as we go to the last of the 8th inning. Josh Spence begins his 2nd inning of work for Miami. Muno yesterday had 1 at bat and struck out after hitting a long home run in the Mets intra-squad game day before yesterday. Two 2-0 to Muno. With Brandon Nimmo waiting on deck, there's Vic Black up in the Mets bullpen, ready to pitch the 9th inning. As Muno takes a strike, we're joined from the Mets dugout by Corey Mazzoni, who just finished his inning of work. And Corey, it's Gary and Ron up in the booth. First outing of the spring. How did you feel?
Yeah, it felt pretty good. I'm obviously a little wild there. The first couple batters there, I was a little amped up, so just had to settle down and threw the ball a little bit better there.
You are a guy who is not accustomed to walking a lot of people. Nerves have got to be an issue that first time out of the spring, don't they?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I always try and pitch at contact and let the hitters beat me. But yeah, I was a little nervous, I guess, but settled down a little bit better there at the end.
Hey, Corey, for our viewers at home, why don't you let them know a little insight to what you feature when you go out there on the mound?
I like to work off my fastball, throw a split changeup and a slider.
Now, that split is something you always had, or you learned it in college? I know you had a really good career at NC State.
Yeah, I had a really good pitching coach, Tom Holliday. A lot of big league experience, obviously, from Matt. But yeah, he showed it to me my sophomore year. And then every year it's gotten a little bit better, still a little inconsistent, but getting a little more confident with it.
Who has played a large role in your developing as a pitcher here in the Mets organization?
Phil Riggins been a really good guy. I mean, obviously all the pitching coaches have been great. Frank and but Phil really connected with, and he knows how to settle me down sometimes.
When you are around all of the young pitching prospects that the Mets have accumulated, and a lot of them are in the big league clubhouse this spring, you guys talk about the future, talk about what you guys aspire to as a group?
I think we all know what we have. I mean, look at all these guys we're throwing, are all power pitchers, and all young guys, all here in big league camp, and we all know how close we are, how close we can help this ball team win.
Corey, do you feel as though in your maturation, I know you missed some of the season last year with an injury, but do you feel like you're going to be able to help the big club this season?
I certainly hope so. I feel ready. I'm healthy. Arm feels good. I'm just trying to be healthy for the season, the whole season. If I get a chance to help them, I'm going to do my best.
You know, there's been a lot of conversation about developing young pitchers and bringing starters up to the big league level to work in relief. Is that something that you've thought a lot about?
Yeah, I mean, I know looked at the St. Louis Cardinals, and they've done that for years, and it's worked out for them. And I mean, if they need me in the bullpen, I feel I can do that. I did a little bit in college, but I've always been able to warm up pretty quickly. So, I mean, you can always go from a starter to a reliever pretty easily. So, yeah, definitely.
Well, Corey, thanks for talking with us, and have a great spring. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's Corey Mazzoni joining us from the Mets dugout.
That's those guys. I love hearing, like, you see the athlete out there, and then I don't know, for me, maybe it's because I'm getting older, I just realize how young they are, when they come on camera.
Brandon Nimmo just missed one, hitting one almost to the warning track in right field. Cesar Puello now bats for the first time today. Puello had a 2-run double in the game yesterday against the Nationals. He is at a very impressive start to his spring with the bat and with his arm as well, although he airmailed one yesterday. But it gives you an idea of the kind of tools that he's working with, and really that's been the case since Puello signed with the Mets. The talk is of him as a 5-tool kind of guy. Setback last year because of the drug suspension. And he watches low 3-0.
When you watch Josh Spence throw, he's not overpowering by any means. He's a guy that kind of mixes up change-ups and breaking balls. As he's asking the umpire what the count is. No, it's not 2-1. It's 3-0, bro.
I'd have thought he'd gotten a strike at some point. Why would you be asking the second base umpire what the count is?
Yeah, it's an Australian thing.
Kind of like the water swirls the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
So Puello draws a walk. 2 walks in the inning for Spence. 2 men aboard. And now Kevin Plawecki will bat for the first time in an exhibition game this spring. And when he stands in the batter's box, watch where he is. It's like watching Frank Robinson standing right on top of the plate. You don't see too many guys stand as close to home plate as Kevin Plawecki does.
Okay, so he's back in the box. No, he's not all the way back in the box, but his toes are almost on that line.
I talked to him about it today. He said he's always done it going back to high school. And I said, well, how do you handle the inside pitch? Do you just let it fly? He said, No, I trust my hands inside. He said, I'll get beat once in a while.
Yeah.
But he said, I'm a pull hitter, and this way I can take the pitch middle of the plate away, and I can pull it without having to lunge. But you just don't see too many guys in that spot. There's a nice pickup by Diaz, and they turn the double play to end the inning. So Plawecki hit it hard, but the Marlins turn 2, and that gets him through the bottom of the 8th. On to the 9th we go. It's 8-1. Vic Black will pitch the 9th inning for the Mets.
Well, you see his numbers last year. Great pickup for Marlon Byrd, Vic Black. He also got a second baseman, right?
Dilson Herrera.
That's right.
Pretty good prospect. Probably in Double-A this year. Well, Black showed his Powerball credentials very quickly. He's got the swagger and the fastball to be a closer. Now the question is, can he have the command and consistency to eventually reach that role? Picked up 1 save, his first in the big leagues late in the season. Colin Moran will lead off in the 9th inning. The Mets have used 8 pitchers now this afternoon.
Such as spring.
After John Lannon went the first 2, everybody else an inning at a time. Lannon looked good, so did Scott Rice. Black fires the fastball, and Moran fouls it off.
Vic really has a swagger to him when he's on the mound.
And there's something to that, right? About
big time.
Being a late inning reliever.
Yeah. Kind of a gunslinger kind of attitude, you know?
Kind of a Randy Myers thing.
Yeah, Randy Myers.
I mean, I don't know if Vic has the camo gear in his locker the way Randall Kay once did.
I think no, that's not allowed anymore. But as long as he doesn't have the 8 things that Randall K. Myers had to do in between every pitch, that'll be a good thing.
Well, Randy used to take that little circular route from the front of the mound all the way to the back after each pitch.
He would take his glove off. He would adjust his hat. He would touch both shoulders and pull up his sleeves underneath his uniform. And there's a few other things.
Which was bad enough when he was pitching an inning at a time, but then he became a starter. 1-2 to Moran, and the breaking ball bounced slowly. Tough play from Muno, and he handles it perfectly. 1 away. Get to Citi Field for opening day, Monday, March 31st, when the Mets host the Washington Nationals at 1:10 p.m. All fans in attendance will receive a 2014 magnetic schedule courtesy of Hyundai. Get your opening day tickets now at Mets.com/opening day. So you have to remember that opening day is the 31st because you won't have your magnetic schedule until opening day to keep you abreast of when all the other games are afterward.
Well, Keith has about 5,000 people there on March 30th after yesterday.
That was a first game of spring training bobble.
Yeah.
Austin Nola up for the second time, struck out his first time up.
Did you see that Ozzie Smith was going around and talking about getting enough signatures to make it a national holiday, opening day, which is kind of interesting because opening day, because of television now, is opening night. And then opening day the next day. So.
Well, this year, opening day is, March 22nd in Sydney. So
That's right.
It's a little more confusing than it used to be. I remember when we were young,
yeah,
the National League first game was always in Cincinnati. The American League first game was at the presidential opener in Washington. And it was easy.
That's
you
right.
remember that every year, but things have gotten a little more convoluted.
Yeah.
It's still a civic holiday in Cincinnati. They have the parade every year.
Well, they do.
On opening day.
Well, I was involved, not in the game, but I was involved with teams that played. The Mets were in Cincinnati in 1984. As Mike Torres was the opening day starter for the Mets.
Mario Soto.
Mario Soto, I think, threw a shutout. I mean, he was outstanding. The next day, myself and Bruce Bereni hooked up in the 2-game series, and I just remember it just being brutally cold.
But of course, the reason why Cincinnati always had the opener, because that was the birthplace of professional baseball. 1869. George and Harry Wright started the Cincinnati Redlegs, first team to be paid. Cuello goes back with the ball and gets there, and that retires Nola for the second out. And for many, many years, that tradition was upheld, that Cincinnati got to play before every other team.
And I don't know where the hubris came from, or anyone thinking that I deserved to be there, but Tony Perez and myself were on Good Morning America the day before opening day.
Is that right?
Yeah, so we did an interview together.
And you were wet behind the ears at that point.
I'm sure I fell all over myself, but somehow they got through 3 minutes of TV.
I'm sure Tony smiled the whole time.
He did.
Matt Angle has his second hit. RBI triple his first time up, and now he's got a 2-out single. So 2 out and a runner on, and now Kyle Skipworth up for the third time. Greg Napo getting ready to pitch the bottom of the ninth. Marlins left most of their household names behind.
We didn't need them.
Not today. Not with the exploits of Austin Barnes. What a day, right?
Right.
Minor league catcher gets the DH, on base 4 times, including a home run, impressing his manager, the former catcher, Mike Redmond. That's a good breaking ball by Black, and it's 0-2. Well, Dick Black is likely to be on the Mets staff this year. What kind of role he'll play? I think it remains to be seen, and I think it has a lot to do with how much Valverde and or Farnsworth have left in the tank.
Well, he's got that good breaking ball that's going to give him the neutralizer, hopefully, against these left-handed hitters. Should own the righties.
Ahead 1-2 on Skipworth. Muno to his left. The bobble costs the third out of the inning. Let's make their third error, as Muno couldn't handle the hopper.
Well, it had a lot of top spin on it. See where his head is at? He was looking to first base instead of looking that ball in the glove. I think that's the reason for the bobble, plus the spin made it more difficult.
Now Juan Diaz bats for the second time. Diaz drew a walk his first time up. Up the middle, a base hit for Diaz. Angle coming home. And the Marlins tack on a run and lead it 9-1.
Base hit by the largest shortstop in organized baseball, Diaz.
Couldn't believe it when he went out to shortstop the last inning. Listed at 6'4", 200 pounds, but he looks like he could be bigger than that.
Bigger and taller, right?
Well, here's Austin Barnes, who's had the big day. Home run, hit by pitch, RBI single, walk. Juan Diaz, by the way, had 15 big league at bats with Cleveland 2 years ago. I think of big shortstops, and you think of A-Rod, Cal Ripken,
Jr.,
Ernie Banks,
Bill Ullman.
Tall and slender. me Mark Belanger was tall, too.
That's right, 6'3", the Blade. Other than Blue Powell, and I might be wrong with that, I think they all wore one Gold gloves. Davey had a Gold glove. Blade did. Mark Belanger at shortstop, and of course Brooks.
Which Robinson had a few.
Yeah.
What do you have, 13, 14, 16?
I think 16 was the number.
Barnes is on base for the 5th time in a row. How many times does that happen in a spring training game? How often do you get 5 plate appearances in the number 9 spot in the batting order?
Wow.
Now Brent Keys has been up twice, singled and a run. So Black retired the first 2 and has run into trouble since. A single, an error, an RBI hit by Diaz, and now the walk to Barnes to fill the bases. Black 20 pitches deep into this 9th inning.
You would think that you might want to think of getting someone up. You wouldn't want him to go 35 pitchers or so, you know. But 2 outs.
Well, you trust that he can
get out of this,
put this inning away, but I think that if Keys prolongs the inning, he'll have to get somebody going.
Just throwing, you know, just in case. I'm sure that's what Terry's thinking about right now.
We had that with Edgin earlier in the game. He was up in the high 20s before he finally got the double play and got out of the inning, but they had a guy up behind him. There's still some bodies down there.
See them all looking. They're anticipating.
Let's see. Well, Parnell's there. He's not available. There's a strike, 3-1.
Classy move by Parnell. You know, he doesn't need to be here. There we go.
So Steven Matz is going to get up. This would be an interesting spot to see the youngster from Long Island.
Although it's got to take him at least 25, 30 throws before he's ready to go.
There's a strike, 3-2. Well, Matz pitched in the inter-squad game the other day, and he was absolutely lights out. 96, great slider. They couldn't touch him. And for all the talk about Noah Syndergaard, who looked great, Matz was probably the best guy out there in that game on Thursday. 3-2 with the bases loaded. They run, and Keys is down on strikes. Nice recovery by Black after falling behind 3-0. The Marlins tack on an unearned run and lead it 9-1 going to the technology. University of Connecticut product. Greg Napo comes in to pitch the bottom of the 9th.
25 wins as a Husky, drafted in the 18th round by the Marlins. The 553rd person taken in that draft. Trying to clean up here for the Marlins.
Matt Clark will be the first man up in the bottom of the 9th. Clark yesterday had a base hit in his first at bat in a Mets uniform. Played last year in Japan and had a big home run season. And takes a fastball strike from Napo. Think of the University of Connecticut. I think of the young Houston Astros prospect George Springer, who a lot of people are talking about this spring as Clark gets all tied up in knots.
Springer had a 30-30 season in the minor leagues. He is talented. We saw him here with Houston last year. Both he and Carlos Correa, who's their talented young shortstop.
The Astros are here next week. See whether they bring those guys along. One thing about the Astros is Clark goes down looking. They've hit rock bottom the last couple of years, but they have stockpiled their farm system to be one of the best in the game and hoping to find their way back in that fashion.
Always the only benefit to having a bad team in the major leagues is that you're going to get those picks and you got to make the most of them. And Springer and Correa, they have a half dozen guys that have a real chance to start in this league. Mark Appel, their young pitcher from Stanford.
And they've also acquired prospects via the trade route.
Yeah.
And when they traded all their veterans away. Dustin Lawley up for the first time, takes a strike. Lawley made a nice catch going into foul ground down to the bullpen area. And now getting his first at bat. 25 home runs playing here at St. Lucie last year in the Florida State League. So he and Napo probably faced each other quite a bit. Napo was in 36 games for the Jupiter Hammerheads last year. It's got to be a big rivalry, right? St. Lucie Mets, Jupiter Hammerheads. Lawley pops one up. Nola, the second baseman, makes the call and stays with it, 2 out.
Well, I know we have a lot of fans in Connecticut who get SNY, and Madison, Connecticut's from where Greg Napo is. That's like a little bit outside of New Haven. It's I remember we used to go when I was at Yale. We'd go to Hammonhasset State Park, which is in Madison.
Is that down in the water?
Yeah, down in the water. Beautiful.
So it's between New Haven and Mystic.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Down in the water. 2 out. Juan Centeno up for the second time. And takes a strike. No. Mets will be on the road the next 2 days, playing at Jupiter tomorrow with Daisuke pitching, and then Monday at Disney with Noah Syndergaard getting his first official start of the spring. And then they're back here on Tuesday. And that'll be our next broadcast over on SNY. Centeno pops it up, and this should do it. And who's going to take it? The left fielder, Benson, puts it away, and the ball game is over. So the Mets go down 1-2-3 before Greg Napo in the ninth, and the Marlins win this one easily 9-1 to drop the Mets to 0-2 on the spring. Game summary is brought to you by the New York Lottery. Hey, you never know. Kevin Slowey started, pitched 2 very good innings for the Marlins, and he gets credit for the win. Lucas Duda homered for the only Met run as the Marlins beat the Mets this afternoon here at Tradition Field by the score of 9-1. We'll be back with more in just a moment.